Hello, I'm Kamali, taking you through the stories people are talking about and sharing on Newsfeed today. It's International Women's Day. We'll hear the voices and show you the events from around the world. After its founder pleads guilty to fraud, we speak to someone who spent thousands going to the Bahamas for the Fyre Festival. We showed you this of a shootout in South Africa yesterday. Today, we delve deeper into the problems of gun crime in the country. Echo. No joke, Amazon's assistant Alexa seems to be laughing for no reason, scaring kids and adults alike. All right, at the top of the newsfeed, the hashtag Women's Day and IWD 2018 are trending globally. The day has taken on more meaning this year on the back of the Me Too and Time's Up movements against harassment and the problem of the gender pay gap.
Me too! Me too!
Now, despite there being more awareness than ever of the disparity between the genders, shocking statistics remain over maternal deaths, genital mutilation, and the lack of equality in terms of the number of women in positions of power and influence. Let's take a look at some of the images of the day.
Here in New Zealand, of course, we're celebrating 125 years of women's suffrage. We have right now in our parliament the greatest representation of women that we've ever had, and yet there is still a need to press for progress.
First of all, can I thank the Right Honourable Gentleman for telling me that it is International Women's Day tomorrow. I think that's what's called mansplaining.
So why March the 8th? Here's why.
What is International Women's Day, and why is it celebrated on March 8th? International Women's Day began as a celebration of the U.S.'s labor movement. In 1908, 15,000 women marched through New York City, asking for better pay, shorter hours, and the right to vote. 2 years later, at the International Conference of Working Women in Copenhagen, Denmark, a German politician, Clara Zetkin, brought up the idea of an International Women's Day. She proposed that women could use it to press for change. On March 8, 1917, over 50,000 women began a 4-day strike over soldier deaths in World War I. It led to the Tsar stepping down and a provisional government granting women the right to vote. Since then, most countries have celebrated International Women's Day on March 8th. How do you plan to celebrate?
Now, a book of poetry called #MeToo has been released today, and we can speak to one of its creators, the poet Victoria Bennett. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us. How do you think art can help address inequality?
I think that an art like poetry has always been at the forefront of any movement, if you look through history. So I think it provides an immediacy and a space for reflection at the same time, and allows us to approach it from a way that is intimate and also global.
I mean, of course, your collection of poetry is called Me Too, following on from the #MeToo movement. Do you think that we crossed a Rubicon in terms of trying to get some sort of gender equality with what's happened in the past 6 months or so?
I think that the presence of social media has made a difference to how our voices are able to be shared. And because of this solidarity that's happening, the voice is louder. It's not just an individual one. It's not limited to official organizations. So with that, there's a power that comes with that movement. I'm hoping that that will present change in real terms as well.
And I'm guessing that with that, it's a snowball effect, isn't it? Because of all those voices on social media independently talking at the same time, there's a culmination and it all comes together as one.
It does, and that's what we've seen with the poetry book, that the anthology brings together 80 women poets. And in the process of that creation, all those people have been talking, sharing stories, and actually the solidarity that's shared between women across countries now is something that is very unique and also possibly very game-changing.
Okay, Victoria, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, let's take a look at what else is trending on social media. And sticking with International Women's Day, France has pledged to close the gender pay gap. Now, companies have been given a 3-year ultimatum to adhere to a law that's 45 years old. On average, women get paid 9% less than men in France. A convoy of vehicles carrying women from around the world have arrived in the Turkish city of Hatay. They're marking International Women's Day by calling for the release of thousands of women who've been imprisoned by the Syrian regime. Off Women's Day now and into Nigeria, and the president of Nigeria has offered to help Ghana tackle corruption. The irony was not lost on people from both nations who hit social media to troll President Buhari. Now, one person said it was an example of self-deceit and self-mockery. Another compared the offer to telling a goat to harvest yams. Nigeria is ranked 148 out of 180 in terms of corruption by Transparency International. Ghana is 81st. Now, the man who organised the doomed Fyre Festival in the Bahamas has pleaded guilty to fraud and could now face 10 years in prison. Billy McFarland used models and their social media accounts to promote the event, but it proved to be a total bust. People paid thousands of dollars to go, but arrived to find no food, no accommodation, and more importantly, no music. It became known as #FyreFraud. Well, Seth Crosno goes by the pseudonym of William Finley IV. He was unlucky enough to pay for the experience.
Yeah, it was not ready. They were really unprepared, and it was not like what we thought we were gonna be going to. So,
I mean, and when you turned up, and people will remember at the time, lots of the videos coming out, there was no organisation to tell you that things just weren't going to be as you expected.
No, they were really poor. They did a very poor job of communicating things. Even when we were on the island, we didn't know where to go for food or lodging or anything. They were communicating mainly through email. And so even sitting on the plane leaving the island, we would receive an email that said, sit tight, day 2 is going to be better. And everyone was like, no, it's over, Maybe 8,000 were sold, and even a portion of those tickets were actually given away. So the amount of tickets actually sold is probably even less than that. So, it's real easy to throw something up on social media and a great looking video, but it's a lot harder to actually put on an event and do what you say you're gonna do.
And finally then, as I said, Billy McFarland has pled guilty. Have you got any sympathy for the guy? Obviously, he tried to arrange this big party with Ja Rule and whoever else, and it just didn't work out this time. Do you feel a bit sorry for him?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to read more into the details, but if he was knowingly duping investors so he could do this, I might not feel too bad for him. But if he was just kind of a kid in over his head, maybe I could feel a little bad for him. I mean, he's 25 or 26, so we'll have to see when all the details come out.
I'm sure it's a tough life lesson for everyone involved. Okay, Seth Crosno, author of William Finley IV, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
All right, well, we wanted to bring you some more today on gun violence in South Africa. Yesterday, we showed you this viral video of a shootout in Western Joburg. It was an attempted cash-in transit heist. There were 152 last year, and they're on the increase. And these are the robberies recorded. Just take a trawl online using the search term shooting in South Africa, and you get an almost daily posting, many way too graphic for us to show here. Well, let's talk to Adele Kirsten. She's the director of Gun Free South Africa, an advocacy group trying to reduce the gun violence in the country. Adele, thank you so much for joining us. What can be done, do you think, and what are your group doing to try and reduce the number of shootings?
There are really three things that we do. The one, and I guess the most important one, is to strengthen our national gun laws, because both in this country and elsewhere in the world, there's very good evidence now over the last 20 years that reducing access to firearms significantly reduces gun deaths. And we've had an almost 50% reduction in gun deaths from 34 in the late 90s to just over 18 around about 2010, where we began to see it increase. So strengthening the gun laws, that requires working with other civil society organizations, lobbying government to look at a whole range of policies, not just the gun law, but policies that make our communities safer and reduce access to guns. The second thing we do is that we raise public awareness. So, for example, a gun in the home poses a big risk for teenage children and suicide, accidental death and injury, and in particular, intimate partner violence and femicide, or something like murder-suicide. And Gun-Free has a lot of data on that. We also know the law. And so we run campaigns where we raise awareness about the dangers of a gun in the home, and then we talk about how the law can be used to remove a gun if there are incidents of domestic violence or other forms of violence in the home.
And that's the main tactics that you have. Are you calling for an outright ban, Adele, on guns? Because, of course, guns are widely held by people legitimately in South Africa.
Well, our approach is evidence-based. And so we will look at what are the guns that are causing the most problems, and they're handguns. Over 90% of our gun crime, handguns are used, and they're used in kind of, predatory crime as well as in interpersonal crime. So our focus would be on significantly reducing access to handguns. So we're one of the countries in the world that allows handguns as for self-defense. So, and of course, there's things like hunting and shooting, etc. Those guns generally don't pose a problem. So in South Africa, handguns are the big issue, and that's where our intervention would be, to significantly reduce access to handguns. And in the long term, we would want to see a complete eradication of guns in our society. It's happened in many other countries in the world, and it's sort of taking an incremental approach, but an evidence-based approach about what poses the greatest problem and where are interventions possible, and interventions that will have impact and that will make a difference.
Okay, Adele Kirsten, I do wish you very much of luck in your work. Thank you for joining us. All right, let me take you around the world now for some other top stories you need to know this Thursday. A nerve agent was used to try and kill a Russian former spy in the UK. British police have opened a terrorism investigation. Sergei Skripal, his daughter, and one of the first police officers who attended to them are critically in hospital. And an update, that police officer has now started talking and is making a recovery. An athlete in South Africa has been attacked while out on a training ride in Durban. His attackers didn't steal from him, but tried to saw off his legs. Mkhlengi Wala has been in surgery, and doctors hope they may be able to save his legs. Police are obviously investigating. A murder trial has begun in Copenhagen in Denmark. An inventor called Peter Madsen is charged with killing the journalist Kim Wall. Madsen has already admitted to sawing off Miss Wall's head and limbs and said she died in an accident. And were you late this morning? Do you live in Europe? I'm not being weird, I promise. It's all about a political dispute between Kosovo and Serbia. It's led to what's being called an unprecedented lag in the continent's electricity grid that's causing some clocks to run at least 6 minutes slow. And NASA has released some great pictures from its Juno spacecraft orbiting Jupiter. It shows the planet in never-before-seen detail, and scientists have been able to say the planet does have a core of sorts. It's made of an extraordinarily dense mix of hydrogen and helium gas. Alexa, what are you laughing at? Seriously, why are you laughing at me? This is getting weird. Now, that creepy laugh and this video was posted on Twitter by someone calling themselves Captain Handlebar. It's showing his Amazon Assistant connected speaker laughing when no one was even attempting to make a funny. And Alexa seems to find stuff quite hilarious, quite often without prompts. Now, good if you're bad at telling jokes like me, but bad if you don't want a robot voice maniacally laughing at you randomly. Amazon say they are aware of the bug and are working on a fix. Well, that is the end of the news feed. You can get in touch with me. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. Find us 24/7 on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, follow, and tweet along. I'll see you tomorrow.